Well, hi everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi here. Monday, the 12th of November, 2018, on this Veterans Day, and we are. This is tonight's version of the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Joe is here. He is just getting some stuff done. He will be in shortly, so I've got his seat all ready to go. No worries. Joe will be here. But I thought I would take the opportunity right now, just at least while he's gone, to just get things rolling. First off, we've got two storm systems to deal with this week. If you are for the morning commute on Tuesday, I would certainly advise some extra time here at 15, 20 minutes of extra time because of the rain that's going to be falling. The heaviest rain from this system that's coming up for tonight into tomorrow morning will be during the morning rush hour. And then after that, the rain should taper off and end from west to east. And so it should be out of here pretty quickly. I think it'll be done in New Jersey for the most part by about 8 or 9 o'clock. And for Long Island at the latest 10 or 11 o'clock as it moves out away to the northeast. And then weather conditions will improve tomorrow afternoon. We're going to get into detail on that a bit more in just a second. We've got cold air coming down for Tuesday night, Wednesday into Thursday, with high pressure building in from the north, and this is going to be setting the table for the second storm system that is coming up for later Thursday night into Friday morning. And the big question here is going to be how much cold air is going to be bleeding down from upstate New York and northern New England, so that we could wind up with maybe some snow and sleet in the mix, especially in the northern and western counties of New Jersey, in the Hudson Valley, and in the interior Connecticut, particularly in elevated areas. Now, I know, by the way, that everybody has already probably at this point heard numbers or seen numbers, and they're making their guesses and feeling that we're going to get this, that, or the other thing. Okay, when the first snow of the season, the first storm of the season is always very difficult to get a grasp on, particularly when it's an instance where you're going to wind up with borderline cold air that creates a mix in some places and not in others, and you're starting to deal with all sorts of different issues. I really would not pay too much attention to anything you see with regards to snow amounts at this point, because it's kind of silly to do it that way. Let's all relax and keep calm and just go about our regular routine here as when we get to tomorrow and Wednesday, and we can get the details figured out in terms of what's going to be happening in the atmosphere. It may very well just wind up being a cheap thrill for snow lovers at the coast. Maybe it winds up being a bit more for inland areas. But again, I wouldn't start looking at all these different maps and different models and thinking that we're going to get accumulating snows. They are very, very rare this time of year. You got to have perfect setups, and that almost never happens, even in the depths in the depths of winter. You're always kind of fighting, some sort of odd thing that might create for less snow, or maybe it busts in the other direction. The bottom line is, that's what we're gonna, we're not quite there at yet. Let me just really quick before Joe gets in here, let you know I've got a new app. If you are on, if you have an Android device, okay, the app is free. I'm going to put the link up here on the chat for you. So when we're done, or when you're done, you can go ahead and download it. It's absolutely free. It's only for Android. There will be an iPhone version of this, hopefully in the next week or two. We're just waiting for getting Apple's approval. Sometimes that can be a bit problematic, but there's the link there. And the only thing I'm asking is if you would consider using that in combination with a subscription to my Patreon weather platform. It's just $2 a month, and it will easily offset, help to offset what the app is costing me to run and keep up there, and maybe I can get a few cigars out of it. So I would appreciate those that have joined the Patreon platform. But again, if you've got an Android device, I put the link up there. It's on the descriptor to this live stream, and you can download it, and the app is absolutely free. And by the way, if you missed the Joe and Joe show, or you missed my YouTube live stream, you can access it on the app. You get notifications when new forecasts go up, and you know, it's easy, it's fast, it's seamless, and take a look at it. And it doesn't cost you anything anyway, so how can you lose? Okay? So thanks again for your consideration, and if you need to find the link to that, you can always just look it up on Facebook or look it up on my website. Mr. Rayo is here.
Hey, it's been a while.
Just told everybody because, Joe, everybody's already, you know, going off the deep end with regards to Thursday, and first things first, we got to get through tomorrow morning's commute, which I think is going to be a little bit difficult with regards to the rain.
I'm amazed that as of this moment, what is it now? This is 9:30. We've yet to see any kind of flash flood or even just regular flood watch or flood advisory posted, because I think, Joe, personally, at least for Westchester and for parts of the lower Hudson Valley, every parkway that has a body of water attached to it, the Hutchinson River Parkway, the Bronx River Parkway, the Spring Brook Parkway, I mean, all of these places flood out of the drop of a hat, and we're talking about possibly 1/2 to 1.5 inches of rain compressed into a 6-hour interval between 4 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock in the morning, and that's going to do some damage.
I would think so, and the ground's pretty soft. We've had a lot of water in the last month. You know, the funny thing, Joe, because you just kind of put it in my head, I think of the last 4 rain events, it's kind of worked out where on the ones where they, and I'm not trying to criticize the Weather Service, it's just one of these things where you sometimes have to make a decision as to which way you go. And you put in the times when they didn't put up the flash flood watch, we had flash flooding.
Right.
In the times that they did put up the flash flood watch, we didn't have it, just like last time. So maybe they're thinking, okay, we didn't have it the last time, and we thought we were going to get 1 to 3 inches of rain, and we wound up getting about half that. So we're not going to put it up this time. You know, it's a dice roll. Look, the bottom line is, for you folks that are watching this show, you know it's going to be raining. You can see the radar off to my left, the current radar. This is as of 9:30 Eastern Time, in case you are watching this on a replay.
Right there.
Yeah. You know, the rain is coming in, and the radar is pretty loaded south and west of here. I've got the regional radar view hidden around somewhere. Let me just find it.
But again, it's not so much that we're talking about a tremendous amount of rain.
It's just that it's all coming really fast.
It's going to come really fast, and that's going to lead to problems on some of the roadways. I'm so happy that I do not have to do what I did for over 20 years, and that is commute or travel on a daily basis on the Sawmill Parkway, because that alone was always a killer. The Hutchinson River Parkway, exit 12. Those of you in the Mount Vernon area know what I'm talking about. Just a heavy dose of rain in a short interval of time, and immediately that exit becomes like a canal or a lake. So all of these things are things that we're facing for tomorrow morning's commute. Not a very, very pretty picture, a very problematic rush back to school and to work in the morning tomorrow. And then we have the other thing to face later on in the week. Joe.
Right, here's the loaded radar right now. The rain pretty solid from central New Jersey. It's spreading fairly quickly northeastward now. You get into some moderate to heavy rain down into southern Virginia, North Carolina. You know, this is just gonna play itself through, and it's a heavy 6 hours worth of the heavy stuff, and I think by 8 or 9 o'clock it may be mostly done in New Jersey.
Right.
And by 11 o'clock it may be mostly done on Long Island.
Now I saw this morning on the 12Z NAM Foos that they gave a vertical velocity value for tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock of plus 34. And,
wow, that's huge.
And in the 6 hours before that, from 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock, they dropped 0.77 inches on us. And from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. tomorrow, they dropped another 0.77 on us. I mean, to say that it doesn't come up that often that you see identical QPF figures over a span of 12 hours, you know, for one 6-hour interval and another 6-hour interval. But I'm sure that what that really means is that we're going to see all of that compressed more to a 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. time frame, with the heaviest dose coming right around 7 o'clock in the morning. So it should be, again, not a very fun rush hour tomorrow morning.
I totally agree with you. I'm trying to download the rainfall forecast map, and what is that? We have hear this ticking. You hear it?
I have bad ears. I can't.
Oh, it was ticking just now.
Oh. Maybe
Okay.
somebody sent us a package.
Stop. I hope, well, God forbid. Well, it stopped. All right, this map is loading, so it's being evil. And apparently, all right, I started using this, Joe, the old surface maps. Remember the old hand plots? But these actually come out now every hour. And the new one, the last one that was updated here, I'm having some signal issues here because it doesn't seem to want to download. The last one is from 22Z, so that's 5 o'clock this evening. That's when it was issued. So
I'll tell you how long, well, the two of us or whatever, you remember when they used to hand-draw these things?
Oh, yeah.
And
I remember hand-drawing them.
Yeah, and the front, they used to have categories for the front. I think, like, for example, a really strong cold front was designated as a 487. Remember?
Yes,
those days,
yes.
I think? And a warm front was like, I think, 023 or something. And they don't even do that anymore. In fact, if I were to go down to the Weather Prediction Center and mention that, practically everybody there who works there now probably look at me like very strangely, like, what are you talking about, you old man?
Yeah, I know. That's just kind of where, that's where we are at this point. High pressure's off the coast. We've got a coastal front setting up, low pressure sitting in southern Mississippi, at least as of about 3 hours ago, and you've got this warm sector with, actually had a renegade tornado watch that was up along the Gulf Coast there. But this low's going to ride up pretty quickly up the coast. It's got some good solid Gulf moisture with it. And then there's another shot of cold air that comes in behind it, and that's going to be in here Tuesday night and Wednesday.
And that will set the stage for the next weather disturbance coming again up from the south. Only this time, that second disturbance is going to run into a very stubborn dome of high pressure, which is going to be banked up over central and northern New England and not really going to want to move very quickly with all that cold air associated with it. And that means potential trouble on Thursday, late into Thursday night, in the form of possibly some frozen precipitation for not everybody, but for some of our viewers tonight.
Right. Okay. Now, here's, by the way, I just wanted to pull this up in terms of rainfall amounts from the Weather Service's digital forecast. Giving basically about just barely under an inch to an inch and a quarter, and then maybe inch and a quarter to an inch and a half amounts further to the east, where perhaps it rains a bit harder for a bit longer. But again, all of this being compressed, as you said, in a short period of time, right around the time of the morning rush hour. A little bit of extra time is a wise thing.
Right. 5, 10, 15 minutes, maybe you want to leave earlier, just to, it just, I've done this many
It's
times,
annoying.
so I can understand. In fact, I tell people in the lower Hudson Valley, when I tell people that, I've been forecasting and I actually live in the lower Hudson Valley, they say, oh boy, it must be really tough in the wintertime. You want to know what? It is rough in the winter, but the worst scenario, which comes at any time of the year, is when we get hit with these either brief surges of heavy rain or these long-term periods of heavy rain.
Right.
Because again, everything, these parkways, they just flood out and then you can't go anywhere, or you end up being diverted to some other route. And thank God for GPS. Because there have been many a time in the past where I've been driving along and I'm saying, I don't know where the heck I am. I'm just following this thing to try to get me out of here.
For though where it is snowing tonight in upstate New York, we've got winter weather advisories, and we even have some winter storm warnings up for parts of northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and southwestern Maine. It's pretty chilly for mid-November standards. This is cold, where we're talking about temperatures that are running a good 10 degrees below average. But when you seasonally adjust that, this is why if we were a month down the road, if this were December 12th, I think you wouldn't disagree with me, Joe. If this were December 12th, we probably
December 12th.
if we had this set up a month from now, I think we probably would be talking accumulating snow before any change over to rain for coastal areas and maybe even a bit more of it inland. You agree?
I agree. I'm just looking to see. Here it is. The Zero Z Foos from the NAM model is out.
Okay, good.
I just wanted to see. Well, that answers my question. I wanted to see what the boundary layer temperatures were going to be at 60 hours. And
which takes us to when? That's Sunday. That's Thursday morning.
Thursday morning.
Okay.
Thursday morning. The T1 boundary is 97.
-3. That's cold.
That is cold.
That is quite cold.
That's quite cold.
All right, just real fast. I just want putting up this. The snowfall that you see here on this map, folks. This is what's expected for tonight through a Tuesday for the areas in upstate New York and in northern New England. elevation driven, but this time around, even non-elevated areas are probably going to see some accumulating snow. You have to go up at least into the Catskills to start getting into the first coating to an inch, and then you start to see the higher amounts up in the Adirondacks. Now, let's jump over to the next one. And since you pulled up the FOOS, which is the numerical version of the NAM model, so that we can actually read the temperatures at different levels.
Right.
I think we could start looking at the maps and give you a sneak peek there.
Thursday morning, 60-hour Thursday morning, they have like a vertical motion of like -2, lot of strong subsidence, and as far as the relative humidity is concerned, at the lowest level it's 43%.
It's pretty dry.
On R2, the mid-level, it's 14%.
Wow.
And similarly low even at the high levels. So I would have to say, at least by looking at those numbers, that verifies you don't have to worry about any kind of precipitation Thursday morning.
No, that's not. Thursday morning's fine. We're not going to have any issues.
But the thickness obviously is beginning to rise. It's already 543 with a -3 T1. So that tells me, at least, if you want to take that at face value, that whatever falls, at least at New York City on Thursday, sometime later in the day probably, it would be more likely to be in the form of sleet as opposed to snow.
Right, unless you get a little bit of cooling, if you get intensity.
Right.
But let's get there first. So here, here's our, this is the NAM model. Make sure I got the right run, which I don't. So let's get the right run. This is the 0Z. So of course, we got our rain for tonight, and you can see where the snow is up to the north. And there's your heavy rain for tomorrow morning, right at the commute. This is at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's just about done in New Jersey, almost done in Long Island's done about by noon, so the NAM's a little bit slower. Now this front gets hung up, much like the last one did, that's causing this system, gets hung up along the southeast coast, so you're going to get another wave develop, and in the meantime, you're going to see the next high building in
have a little bit of ice in
New England.
What is that, Mississippi?
Yeah, because you know what? This deep trough is kind of shearing apart. You're getting... this was supposed to be a deep trough up and down the coast where all the cold air was going to get down to northern Florida, and that wound up again, Joe, not being the case.
Right.
This is the umpteenth time where the models have done this, where they've made these deep troughs going all the way down. You think the cold air is going to get all the way down into Georgia and North Florida, and the reality is different. But it's also setting up these storms here, and look at this by Thursday morning, all this ice across Virginia, West Virginia, southern Ohio, as the low moves northward. Now that high position, by the way, is so critical in terms of where precip starting, what it's going to be.
Right.
But you look at this, and this is by Thursday evening. Looks like wet snow or sleet, even to New York City, northern New Jersey. Not impossible if the NAM is right, and we don't necessarily know that it will be, but this, at least in terms of the NAM's look tonight, is a bit colder than the prior runs for inland areas. I honestly think that the best shot for places that are going to have any kind of issues with this are going to be elevation, down in northern New Jersey, maybe elevated areas in northern New Jersey, northeastern Pennsylvania, and in the Hudson Valley, particularly along and north of Route 84. I think those areas might be prime for something. Right. That makes sense, correct?
Right. And even in the immediate tri-state New York City area, don't forget in northern New Jersey they have that line of mountains, the Watchung Mountains, and they kind of protrude up, and sometimes they get iced over or snowed over, while places within a stone's throw of them, just get plain rain. I'm
also wondering too, Joe, the gradient actually gets a bit tight. So it might get a bit breezy or even windy along the immediate coast. But, you look at the NAM with the surface low east of Atlantic City by 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Friday morning. Looks like there's like a dry slot that's coming up there.
Yeah. I noticed that with the Canadian model, too, or earlier today. In fact, the Canadian model was even saying that we might even have sunshine to start the day on Friday. Whereas, if
everything moves along,
broad brush and just plain rain. But yeah, it could happen as well. I'm impressed by the fact that it looked like for a while that this stuff was going to start moving in right after noon or 1 o'clock, and the NAM now is seemingly trying to hold it off until after 5 or 6.
Well, it's probably saying that the cold, dry air to the north is going to be more important,
right?
And that could explain the reason why the NAM has this burst of of what could be either wet snow or sleet in northern New Jersey, in through Connecticut, and in the Hudson Valley and in northeastern Pennsylvania by evening. And again, it's one model run, and it's deep in its it's in its 72-hour period. There might be some adjustments going forward. We'll see.
Well, we'll see also that sometimes the models indicate snow, and the
and
actual
it winds
cases,
up being sleet, especially now.
No, but not that. But it ends up being virga for a while.
Oh yeah.
The low levels of the atmosphere are just so dry that everything is coming down hot and heavy. But in the last 1,000 or a couple of thousand feet, it just vanishes.
Now, just for laughs, okay.
Now, what time is that, by the way?
This is 1 a.m. Friday morning.
Okay, so we've got rain and we've got ice.
Ice in the Hudson Valley.
At
least north of 84, and also in Connecticut, northwest New Jersey, northeast PA. The first ones of the season, Joe, were just always. I got to get this under my belt so that I can get the feel for then I'll have the feel for the other ones.
Exactly.
But the first one is always a tough one to figure. And hey, given the calendar, this should be all rain everywhere for the most part.
Right.
Oh, by the way, I was reminded today, Veterans Day 1987, Washington D.C. 11.5 inches of snow.
I remember that.
Didn't we wind up with patchy areas up here that got a coating to a couple of inches?
Yeah. We even on Long Island, I think we had some slushy.
Yes.
In fact, very, very, very quick story. I lived in Levittown at that time in 1987. I remember this like it was yesterday, and I had a habit of feeding the birds before I left for work. I used to leave for work like 4 or 5 in the morning. My wife and I, in fact, she's a meteorologist as well. We work for a private weather company. Every morning, just before I got in the car, I'd go over to the bird feeder in the backyard, fill up the bird feeder, and that was it. The birds were taken care of for the rest of the day. That day, it was snowing. Heavy wet snow was falling. We jumped in the car. We drove off as quickly as we could to get to work. And halfway through, I'm saying to myself, oh my goodness, I forgot to feed the birds. I forgot to feed the... So when I got home later that afternoon, like 2, 3 o'clock, I went out in the backyard. Every manner of starling or black crow, it was like a power line. There must have been like, Joe, there must have been like 40 or 50 of them. It looked just like Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds.
I bet.
And where the bird feeder was, the last little bit of feed from the previous day was now on the floor, around in the snow, around the thing. And they're all looking at me and like, all right, guys, hold on. I ran back in the house and put the thing in the feeder, but I remember that very well. That 1987 storm. That was pretty wild. You're right. 11 inches in Washington D.C.
I put up the snow map from off the NAM.
Okay.
Now I did this knowing in the back of my mind that it was going to be producing ridiculous numbers. This is the maps are out there and everybody gets to see them. And I've been trying to emphasize, and I'll say this again. This is not a tool that is a good tool to use for forecasting for a number of reasons, among which it's seldom that they winds up being correct.
Right.
It's the NAM's interpretation of where it sees snows to whatever algorithms they use to build these maps, and you're seeing what seem like big amounts, but you know what? This assumes a 10-to-1 ratio, and it doesn't tell you how much of this is actually sleet. So you can't really use this. So I put it up there only because of the fact that I know that some of the folks that are on the board tonight are going to see this map somewhere, and it's going to be floating around. This is why you don't look at these kind of maps and look at them literally. The one thing about Joe, this time of year, I think you'll agree with me on this. You can wind up having strange things happen.
Sure.
Especially when it comes to these sorts of events that where you're borderline cold air. It's the beginning of the season. We've had these occasional hits over the years with these heavy wet snow events early on that seem to come out of nowhere. And well, you know what? We've got 2 more days to watch this.
I have to give credit, though, to the folks over at the Climate Prediction Center who, I think it was early or mid of last week, in forecasting for this particular week, they had a broad area below normal temperatures. And in our zone, and from the mid-Atlantic up to our zone, they had a rather significant area of above normal precipitation. I'm saying to myself, well, if they have below normal below normal temperatures and above normal like this precipitation, is it possible that maybe sometime next week we're going to get our first real shot of seeing wintry precipitation? And sure enough, here's what we're talking about for Thursday night, and that may very well pan out. But we should also now, since we talked about tomorrow and we're talking about Thursday,
right,
let's bring some good news into the picture. It appears right now that after this last atmospheric hemorrhage on Thursday night, Friday, after that gets by, we've got a nice long stretch of, it looks like, dry weather taking us right on, maybe through much of next, maybe not all of next week for Thanksgiving.
The only thing that's changed in the long range that I noticed was the fact that, initially going back about a week ago, it looked like it was going to warm up a little bit next week. Not crazy warm, but just maybe warm up to near or a little bit above normal. Now it looks like it's going to be near or a little bit below average throughout much of next week.
Right.
And it does look quiet. The other thing I picked up on the long range, which I thought was very interesting over the last number of days on what seems like every other run of the model, but the GFS is making an attempt to go to a very blocky looking pattern after Thanksgiving and going into the beginning of the month of December. There's a lot of things going on in the way up in the stratosphere again, that I think argue for the possibility that we could go into kind of a blocky pattern. If we wind up getting back to a pattern that resembles what we have now in the month of December, I think we are going to wind up getting an early accumulating snowfall somewhere along the line.
Right.
It would seem to me, looking at the the possible blocking nature of it, that we could put that on the table.
Hey, you just said a few seconds ago, crazy things can happen. That accumulating snow may come a lot earlier than you'd think if certain things fall into place later Thursday and Thursday night. Andrew Pinheiro, one of our weekend meteorologists, was talking about how he remembers how in the days leading up to that pre-Halloween, Thanksgiving, I wish, pre-Halloween snowstorm that we had in 2011, that it the pattern now kind of looked like that. But I tend to disagree in that regard. I mean, my memory serves me correct. We knew within a few days that the atmosphere was going to be cold, the column, if you will, was going to be all the way cold enough all the way down to support snow. This pattern, again, later Thursday and Thursday night, seems to suggest more of a sleet or ice as opposed to a snow pattern. But again, we'll see. We're a few days away.
Yeah, I just don't think, in instances like this is where, like in the 2011 storm, as I remember, you could no one's going to forecast a magnet 20-inch snowstorm at the end of October.
No,
you're just not going to do it. And you look at the numbers, with respect to the dam. If you want to compensate for the possibility that there could be a heavy wet snowfall someplace in some elevated area, there's no way that you or I or any forecaster can come and say, all right, in this area of mountains, in this particular geography, in this particular county and elevation, you're going to wind up with X amount of snow. It's just, you can't do it.
You can't.
So just kind of block out all the nonsense that'll be going on out there, and just relax and be calm. If we start to think that there's something going to be of consequence for inland areas and elevated areas, guess what? We're not going to keep it a secret. So we are going to tell you.
I live at 440-foot elevation, so I always seem to get more than places like we're right down the road from me.
Right.
So we'll see how this all pans out on later Thursday and Thursday night.
All right. So anyway, you've got FiOS 1 News Hudson Valley at the top of the hour,
and you have FiOS 1 News New Jersey and Long Island, and New Jersey especially. You talk about a wide variation here. I mean, up in the northwest corner, Sussex County, they could easily pick up some ice and significant snow or ice. And meantime, folks who live right along the immediate Jersey shore might see more just rain.
See just rain.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're good. And tomorrow morning we've got, I believe we have Jeffrey Banson and Brian Fitzgerald on in the morning. Brittany's still off, so we've got Addison Green. And then you and I are back tomorrow night.
Absolutely.
All right, great.
Another Joe and Joe.
So just before we say goodbye really quick, in case you came on late, shameless self-promotion. If you have an Android mobile device, you can download my new weather app. I'm putting the link up on here. It will be available for iPhones hopefully in the next week or so. But if you got an Android, you can get it now. It's absolutely free. And one of the things that you can do with the app is you can watch the Joe and Joe weather show. If you missed the live version, you can watch it on a replay, and you will get a notification when that video is posted and ready, along with my YouTube live streams and all the other stuff that I'm doing. So the link is up there on the chat. It's also on the descriptor to this live stream that we're doing now, and it's up on my website, and it's up on my Facebook page, so you can find the link. If it's all over the place. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Have a great night, and thank you, all of you who served this country in the armed forces on this Veterans Day 2018.